I would rather somebody tell me like my work is absolute dog shit than like be sweet talk.
Let's start from where you kind of started at. You know what I mean? How you got the job with Jukebooth, and you've kind of just like keep getting better and better and better at what you're doing.
I was in high school, and my mom found like a GoPro, like one of the first GoPros at like a Goodwill. It was like locked in that little like glass case.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, this is cool. Like, you want this?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll take it." I started like tinkering around with it. And that year, my family, like, we never go on family vacations very often. But I took it. We went to Hawaii that year, and I took it with me. And I like made this. I filmed like everything on this stupid little crappy GoPro.
Was it the first version?
It wasn't like the first one, but it was like, it wasn't called anything. It was just GoPro, and it was black, and it was like stuck in the water housing. Like you couldn't take it out. Everything was just like, you had to open up the thing, and that's where your SD card was. And you could also, there was no battery, so you could only charge it via USB inside of it.
I love how it was in the glass case too at Goodwill.
Right, it was probably like $20.
Yeah, anything over $20 is in the glass case.
Yeah. And so, I brought it there, and then I was like, oh, I should like edit something together. I like had the music that I wanted. And then I was trying to do it like a super legit way. I was like, message the like artist on SoundCloud, and I think their manager hit me back. I was like, oh, if you want to license it, like you have to contact me. And I was like, I'm 16 years old. Like, I don't know how to do any of this. Like, I'm not touching that. And yeah, threw like a little piece together, put it on YouTube, and I don't know, it's like pretty good for like my first ever video. I think I edited it in like Filmora. It was like super basically. It was like maybe a step above iMovie.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's where you got to start. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And so and then after that, I was like, I think drones is kind of started to become a lot bigger, and so that was like my first like real legit kind of like camera, if you want to call it that. And so I got a DJI Phantom 3. I had to convince my grandfather to help pitch in money for like my birthday for it, and he was like, okay, I'll get you it, get your drone license. I was like, yeah, cool, I'll get my drone license. Never got it. And then just like did the same kind of thing, with just like goofing around with it, flying it around, getting videos, making stuff. I made this like video edit of like my hometown, which is kind of like the only real project I ever did with my drone. I did some other little photography things. So it was kind of, at this point in time, I was much more, I wasn't that much into video. I liked it, and I wanted to tinker around with the idea of it, but I wasn't good enough to like really make a full piece. So I was kind of focusing more on like photography at the time. And then when I was about to graduate high school, I was like starting to put together like a full kind of like piece, if that's what you want to call it for the time. But and then one of my brother's friends was like playing Minecraft on my laptop, and he spilled this like sticky drink on the laptop, and I sent it in not knowing I had to like, I thought they were just gonna fix it and give it back to me, and they sent it back to me, and the whole hard drive on the laptop was wiped, and that was where all my files were. I was like, screw video, I'm not doing video anymore. I like given up.
Learn early though, you need to back up your files.
Exactly. And so I was just editing right off of the computer. I didn't think twice about, I need a backup, this, that, and the other thing. And then I got to college, and I was like, okay, I want to try the photography thing. Like, I'm really interested in that. And I thought that was going to be the more pursuit of what I did. And then I took a video marketing class in college, like my like sophomore year, and made like a couple. I think I made like 2 kind of marketing videos, maybe one. And that kind of was like, oh shoot, like video's pretty cool. Like there's a lot more to video, because I mean, I had kind of grown up watching like YouTube, and it'd been like Sam Colder, Peter McKinnon, like these guys are all making their cool like travel films, and I was like,
travel films were huge,
right?
Yeah, that was like the thing.
And I think there was a lot of me that was like, oh, that sounds cool, I really want to be that, because everybody wanted to be that. Everybody. At that point,
travel the world and shoot video.
Yeah,
awesome.
Like what else would you want more than that? And that was when I was kind of trying to do it. Then when I took the video marketing class, I was like, oh, like this is actually pretty cool. Like, there's more to this, like working with brands beyond just like, oh, look how cool my life is, like telling a story, those kinds of things, became a lot more interesting to me. And so, yeah, put some things together, and then had an internship at my school, which we were making like basically just doing like marketing courses, not marketing, like master classes
Yeah.
for the school, which was something they haven't really done. And I think I was the first intern that they had hired. And yeah, it was like super good time. We shot on Blackmagic, so I got like first real taste of like a legit cinema camera and some other tools, lighting and sound and whatnot. There's a lot of times we'd have in college. I mean, I think most people know that you just want to sleep like all the time.
Yeah.
And we've had earlier like shoot times, and they would put me on the recorder with the sound, and I'd just be listening and like nodding off, like as I'm just like,
Like, yeah, it sounds good.
yeah.
Real engaging piece that we're building here.
Exactly. But no, it was a good time. It was a good learning experience. Then senior year, I kind of put together a mental, kind of like a full story of like the mental health thing that I went through in high school and some in college. And that was like my senior project, which was really cool because I don't know, I'd be able to have the freedom to just make whatever I wanted for a senior project was like pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like when you're in one of those programs, it's like having that freedom is great, but it's also like some kids don't do anything with it. Like that happened in my school too. Like people had the freedom to create, and a lot of people didn't do anything. I think that was the one thing that I noticed too, like when you reached out to me, is that you were doing stuff even though no one was like forcing you to film. And so that was like what got me thinking like, oh, he really wants to do this thing. Because like I'll get people that send me stuff and they barely even send me a link to their website, or they'll just send me a resume. And like I think a lot of people just want a gig and they don't really want to do the thing, and they don't really love it that much. They just think it's cooler than sitting at a desk.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think there was definitely like a point when I was in college, like some of the clubs at the school would reach out to me for like photography or video of their events. And I think there was like a little part of me, and I'm sure with a lot of people, are like, I'm not going to do it unless I get paid.
Yeah.
And I was just, a lot of these people were kind of like my friends. So I was like, I'm helping them out. And I'm also like learning at the same time. So like, I don't really have it. It's not like I'm going to do anything else with my time. So I was just like, I have free time. Your event's at like 8, 9 o'clock at night. Sure, I'll shoot it. I don't,
Yeah. Experience is worth it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it kind of all built up together towards that like senior film, which is like the first real legit like project that I did. And it was like, I forget how, I think it was like, was it 10 minutes, I think, story piece. And yeah, that was just like a full like next level of commitment I had to like really formulating like a full project from storyboard to final result. So and yeah, that was kind of like, in a way, I feel like that was the one thing that got my foot in the door, because I had work, but I hadn't really had something that was like putting together a piece that like we put together now from like thought, like storyboard to finish.
Yeah, I think that helped to see that. I think it helped to see that you like think through the process from start to finish, and you weren't just like filming your friend in a dorm room, which I see plenty of. And it's not a bad thing, but it's like you have more space outside of your dorm room at college. And like you were filming, I think you filmed like a local business or like a coffee shop or something. So it showed like you were getting out into the world. Yeah. And I get that. Like when you're in college or like you're just out of high school or even in high school, like you don't want to step outside your comfort zone. So you're like, I'll just film my sister, my brother, my friend, like playing in their playroom or whatever, and like just chill stuff. Yeah. And like you never break out. And then if you don't break out, you never get that real world experience.
Well, and like, I don't know, shooting B-roll is like all the time. Like, a B-roll is like, that's the reason it's called B-roll. It's not, it's secondary to whatever like is the main subject of your story.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough that, going to a small enough school, there was a lot of opportunities for me. There was a lot of other people, doing photography and video at the level that I was at that time. And so I think, I was kind of like the go-to resource for a lot of people. And then also just being in like the area where it's like pretty small, like not like a lot of small businesses are just like dying to try and like get some stuff. So they're happy to like work with you. And there's also not a lot of other schools in the area. So it's just like, everybody just kind of knows everyone. And it's a great way to just kind of get connected with people. And yeah.
The good thing too is like you're hungry for it and you have the drive. I mean, that's one thing that me and Sean, right in the beginning when you came on too, and you just like kept looking things up and like kept like any question that Sean had about the red or something that he didn't know, you would look it up and figure it out.
Thanks, Dan.
And it was just like
anything that Sean doesn't know. There's a lot of shit I don't know about a lot of camera stuff. So.
But most people wouldn't take that time to look into something like that because it's like, oh well, why? It's not my job. It's not what I need to do. But you know what I mean? Like you had the drive and you really loved it, and you still do have that. So it's like, because coming out of college, you weren't using the cameras you're using now. So it's like joining a production company and the level that you're at now in kind of a short amount of time is pretty cool to see.
Totally. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And Dan, don't pump up his tires.
Yeah. My bad. Yeah. You suck. Get back to work.
That's all right. I'm my biggest critic. So
that's good.
Yeah. I mean, I was shooting on an A6000 for the longest time. I shot my whole film on an A6400. But I mean,
camera.
It's not a bad camera at all. Like, but it shoots 8-bit video, so you have to be like very conscious of like certain things that you're doing with it.
Totally.
Definitely learned that in the editing stage where I was like, why is this so grainy? I was like, well, I cranked the ISO up, and also, I mean, learning how to shoot log, that's a whole nother thing,
right?
As well.
Yeah, you have to expose the right amount, and it depends what the sensor is. Depends like low light. Like
exactly.
You can't just crank it to 64,000 and be like, yeah, it looks great.
Yeah,
but this is things that filmers still don't know. Like
totally.
If you're not in that space and like doing like, I don't want to say commercial stuff, but anyone can pick up a film camera and be like a vlogger or do whatever. Like those YouTubers, they don't really, a lot of them don't understand, waveforms, and if you're shooting log, like what to go for. So it's like, yeah, you gotta still learn all that stuff.
Yeah. They don't really teach that. I mean, maybe in film school, I didn't go to film school, but maybe they do, but like they didn't teach, did they teach that here?
Not
like waveform and stuff.
Oh no, like
IRE,
I think the first no, not those. I mean, we learned about like shutter speed, ISO, but like I had already known those things by the time we had a class. It was video production, so we had we basically were tasked to like make a couple things. Like one of our first projects was like sound design, so it was like, here's a clip for this movie, no audio, create the audio.
That's cool.
Like go find it and whatnot. So it was like an 8-10 second clip. I think this one was maybe from the one that I did was from Django, like Unchained.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the audio wasn't like the best because the free audio you can find online. You can only find so much of it. But still, it was like a cool task, and like kind of had some presentations where it was like, what is ISO? What is shutter speed? This. So, I mean, yeah, those things. You can go watch like a 10-minute YouTube video on that and learn what you need to, as long as then obviously the repetition of like actually putting it into practice is another thing. Because I remember when I was like first learning photography, like I didn't really understand. I kind of left my settings at like one thing and then would change things that I probably shouldn't have been changing to get like my proper exposure. So
you do whatever you can to get that exposure. When you're starting out, you're like, oh, this looks good.
Right.
And then it's like 1/20th of shutter speed.
It looks good on that tiny 2-inch display you have on the back of your camera. Then you bring it in, you're like, this is hideous.
Yeah.
But yeah, so not many things are taught there, but it was really just, having the desire to learn outside of it to get a better result. Because I mean, you can get away with some like not so good as results, but obviously if you want to be better, you want to push yourself, like putting in the time to then actually, figure it out yourself, I think is really important.
Do you think nowadays it would be worth going to college to learn filmmaking and what you did, or do you think, and why, I guess, because maybe I have a different opinion on this, but I'd like to know like what you think. Like, do you think you have to go to school? Do you think it's like a good learning process?
Yeah. No, I don't think school is mandatory, or at least I see it as like a requirement. I mean, I was kind of not necessarily told that it was a requirement, but it was very much like encouraged to like do that. And I don't think that like college and things in general is bad, but I don't think that like your degree is like what you have to do. So
and people get locked into that.
Exactly.
I mean, I know people that get locked into like their job because they're like, well, I went to school 6 years for this.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of it's very short-sighted in that way. I think that like the college experience more so is about like character building, struggling, learning from mistakes, those kinds of things. I think that is like 10 times more important than what you're learning like in your actual courses.
Yeah.
And so, but I personally feel that if you do that, if you go to school for that, you are just in an environment where you're constantly failing, succeeding. Like it's this constant cycle of things. So if you weren't to go to college, then those may be kind of situations of learning wouldn't happen as fast because you're not put in an environment where those are as available to you.
Yeah. I think the character building is big. I think that's why I would say go to some sort of school or like group that is like join a filmmaking group or something.
Yeah,
which is cool because like now you can do that online. You can join a group or like somebody's doing a challenge. I mean, like when we started, Dan and I, it was like, I don't know, like mostly photography, DSLR stuff, like 5D. Like people are just kind of like trying out different things. Like you did a lot of skate stuff, right? Is that where you kind of
started out doing skate stuff, but it started out with like the T2i because that was the first like
T2i.
Like camera that was doing you could do video, like
totally
decent video on it. So yeah,
and that was our only tool. I feel like now there's almost like too much stuff where it gets like overwhelming. Totally. Like when we had it was like T2i Rebel. It was like you only had one option.
Yeah. Well, and it was like 1080p was like, or I'm not probably the T2i probably wasn't even 1080 at the time.
I think we had like, I mean, I remember. Did you ever see those flip? It was like it had a USB in it. It was called a flip camera. And like you'd plug straight into the camera recorded to itself. It was like 720. It was kind of like the first GoPro style thing.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
That was like I had one of those and I'd film stuff and it looked terrible. I mean, we filmed on like mini DV.
Yeah. That's what we did most of our skate videos on. Is mini DV.
We had tapes, so forget like 1080 720. This is like tape, dude.
No, but I mean, in terms of what you were saying, like how there's like so many things out there, like it's like, okay, my camera shoots 4K, but then you have like 8 different codecs that you can shoot 4K in. And like, if you don't like a lot of the times the file names are like super confusing. You need a computer that can do that. So it's like, okay, what one of these files? And I think that's like when 4K first became a thing, that was like a big deal. But now you can shoot 4K and there's so many different options.
Yeah, like log, GOP, intraframe. And it's like, what are you bringing into your computer? Are you editing it? Are you just going straight to whatever, Vimeo or YouTube? And it gets confusing for people. Right. They're like, I don't know, I've been shooting, I want to save space. So I shoot like log GOP, which is great because like for most stuff, it's just like less color depth. And like, depending on what you're doing, like a vlog or something, you don't need all that stuff. Right. And so they should almost make like a menu there you could just hit like beginner mode and it like refreshes and literally has like a beginner menu and none of the other crazy stuff.
Totally. Yeah.
It's confusing.
Well, yeah, it's honestly kind of like like, for example, I know that the R5C, you have the option to be in a cinema menu and a photo menu. And when you compare the photo menu to the cinema menu, it's like a whole different world.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like so many options, obviously, that you want as like a filmmaker and somebody that's owning a cinema camera. But for somebody that's maybe not looking for that.
Yeah, they don't really have like a beginner camera that like has a beginner menu, I don't think. I mean, Sony's menu is completely different than Canon's menu. And like Red has, even though it's like insanely expensive to own a camera, it has the most simple menu, I think, because it's like just for video. It's got frame rates right there. It's like touch screen.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Black Magics are like pretty good. The one time
I was going to say Black Magics is pretty decent.
That's true too.
I would say the one downside is that it's like strictly touchscreen. At least the 4K that I used. I don't know about like the 6K or the 6K Pro or the newer ones.
I think I don't know if they still have that touchscreen. I think the 6K Pro has the screen that comes out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They are awesome cameras, and like the form factor is interesting because it's like kind of like a DSLR, but it doesn't have the photo menu and all the crazy stuff. So maybe that is the most simple. Like that's what you started in college on.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like pretty cool. Like I'd never seen a camera do that before. Now obviously those cameras have significant downsides to that as well. So it's
battery life.
Yeah, it's with all the camera systems out there, it's a very much like a pick your poison kind of thing. Like, okay, red's great. You want to shell out, the cost of a new car for your camera,
right?
Like,
and then but 25 terabytes of hard drives just for like one project,
right? And you have to rig it out every time you want to shoot something. You can't just bust it out of the case and go shoot.
Right? Yeah. So there's like, there's that. I mean, it's definitely when the Reds first came out, it was very much like a studio camera. Like needed a lot of lighting, needed like ACs. You can now like run one by yourself. And you could do run and gun, but you have to still build it out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If it hasn't been obvious, I'm at least a pretty big gearhead. I think some of us are also pretty into it. At least Sean, especially with his red game that he always likes to talk about.
Yeah.
Sean's out of control.
I am out of control because I love tech. And I think I saw somebody else talk about this recently where it's like, it's one of the, I mean, I love filmmaking in general, and that's kind of why I got into it. I wanted to do something where I could control my schedule and like create. And I was really into photography and video, but it's also like really cool to like buy new tech. Mm-hmm. And it's like the one excuse, like, oh, I need like 6 more lights to do this shoot. And like, you just start buying tech. And so like all of my money ends up going into like camera systems, lenses. And I love it. Like I love to play with camera gear. It's super fun.
What's good about that though is like when you start buying all these lights, then you have to learn how to actually use them and what's good and what's not good. So you get to learn. The downside of that is half the shit goes obsolete after like a year. You know what I mean? So it's like you buy all these expensive lights and expensive cameras, then like, a year down the road, they have something new and you buy it. Wow. They got you every time.
They got me. I mean, I've been in and out of red because I was like, nobody's using it. It's too expensive. What am I doing? Sold it, lost money, went and bought another one because I was like, everybody loves it. It's great. And then it's just like, I've gone through this. I mean, Daniel's seen it firsthand. He's like, what do you think? I'm like, I might just sell all my Canons and go Sony. He's like, but you have all these Canon lenses. I'm like, I don't know. Everybody's using Sony now. It's just,
I think Canon's messing up though.
I know.
That's true.
I mean, we could go right into that with the Nikon purchase of red.
Yeah. I mean, and I love Canon. I'm Canon all the way, but I don't know what to do now.
I don't know. I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith in them as far as video goes and like cinema stuff. I mean, the C300 Mark III is great. You could shoot docs and features all day with it. C70, same thing. Great camera, but like they haven't really pushed anything new, and there's all these cameras coming out from other companies. Nikon,
and they always limit their cameras.
Yeah,
there's always they never. Sony seems like they're putting as much as they can into one camera, and then the next year the same thing. They'll outdo a camera.
Yeah,
Canon holds back, and they don't.
Which, I mean, there's downsides and upsides too for what Sony's doing. But I think, like, for example, when the R5 came out, like, that was, like, right during COVID or right after COVID. Like, everybody was like, oh, this is sweet. This is revolutionary. And then it was like...
internally.
Right. And then it was, boom, overheating.
Yeah.
Like, it's like still a DSLR. But then it's like, okay, like, the R5C is, like, technically the thing that's kind of, like, their hybrid, true cinema hybrid shooter. But the thing's massive. It's like, why would you want that? But then you have Sony, the FX3 and the FX30 and like the smaller cameras that are tiny that are great.
Yeah.
Like, they shoot a very nice image. It was used on a full film. The creator, it's been talked about left and right all over the internet. So we don't need to milk that anymore.
But there's a reason for it. I mean, it's a great image. It's a small form factor,
Mm-hmm.
but Canon hasn't even like tried that space. They came out, what was that camera? It looked like a crash camera. I think Canon did one. It was like tiny. It was like an action camera, I think.
Oh, and I don't
No?
think I ever saw it.
Maybe I'm making that up, but I thought they had like this little cinema camera that they made and like no one ever used it. I don't know. I mean, DJI does some cool stuff too. And that's the thing, like find your niche. Like DJI does that Ronin 4D.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Sony will be right next to all the other. I mean, they are like with the Burano. They just came out with
Yeah.
it shoots 8K, I think.
Yeah, I think it shoots 8K. It's like I think it's like kind of a mini Venice, or a Venice B cam is kind of what it's like, but it's obviously can be used completely fine on its own.
It's so crazy too. Like you have YouTube creators creating with like, I mean, I've seen people shoot with Arri Alexas just for like YouTube, and I think people just get like kind of like me, they're just into the tech. It's just fun.
Oh, definitely.
It's just fun. Why would you not want to own like a cool camera?
I always find some way to justify it. You know, it's always like, okay, this camera, it's like, it's way out of my budget, can't afford it. And then I'm just like, nah, but I can make so much cool stuff with it. Nah, I'll be able to do this, I'll do that. And
talk yourself into it.
Exactly. It's like
back in the day, Red, it was like that. When you bought a Red, people wanted the name, so they would hire you for the Red.
That's why I bought.
But nowadays, nowadays you can shoot anything. You can shoot shit on an iPhone and have it come out somewhat decent.
Oh, totally.
But that Canon crash cam is the ME200S.
Oh, okay.
Looks like a Komodo.
Yeah, but it's been around for a while, and
it's still $3,000.
No one uses it, or I've never.
Yeah, I've never
seen like a broadcast kind of camera. But that can.
It could be like a broadcast. Like could be like a studio cam, but it's tiny. It looks like
Super 35.
It looks
12
like
stops, dynamic range.
I don't even know why they built it because I've never seen it used anywhere. I'm not really sure either. I mean, the Red thing was crazy. I remember that when people like, I worked a job where somebody was shooting one, and like I worked with a client. And they were like, "Oh, we love this camera. It's so awesome. Like, we're gonna keep using this person because they have a Red." And I was like, "What is this?"
Right.
And I'm like, "What is this thing?" And so I started to look into it, and I'm like, I don't even get it. I don't know why it's so expensive. So I rented one from a friend and used it for a job. I'd never used one. And like, it was a massive...
Did your computer even handle the files?
It was a massive mistake because like, I was pretty much starting out. I think it was just me and John on set. We did all the lighting. We had hot lights. We didn't have LED lights. And we just like didn't know how to expose it correctly. And we just shot this thing. I think we ended up doing it in black and white because the color was terrible because we didn't know what we were doing. We were just like, yeah, we got a Red. We're going to shoot this cool thing with this Red.
Yeah.
And it was just like people wanted it. And then I ended up buying one. And I remember going to the bank and being like, I'm going to buy this camera. And they were like, we're not going to give you a loan for this. This is crazy. And I'm like, well, I need it. And they were like, okay. And they put me on this like loan program that was crazy. It was like insane. It was more than my rent. And I just was like, I'm going to do this. It's going to be, and it worked. I think part of it was like, it set a fire under me. Like I have to make enough money to at least pay my rent in this camera. And then I'll like maybe not eat or anything. Like I'm just, and like, it probably got me somewhere.
Every business card is just like, hi, I'm Sean Collins. I have a Red.
I have a Red. I mean, that's what my website, I think my Instagram, everything was like Red owner. People used to do that a lot.
Yeah,
like
sure.
they would put like Red owner and people would go. And people would just hit me up.
It was a big deal.
They were just hitting me up just for that reason. Like they didn't even have to like see your work. They were like, you have a Red, so you must know what you're doing. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
But yeah, I mean, not many people I think would go to the bank and take out a loan for something of that level with no guarantee of stuff coming in.
You can't even like, it was hard to convince them. I had to do a small bank in New Hampshire. And like, I went there and they were like, what is this? And I'm like, it's a camera. They're like, it's $50,000. And I was like, yes. They're like, that's insane. What does it do? I'm like,
yes, I need this.
It takes video. It's like, why do you need this? I'm like, everybody has it.
Yeah.
And like, not everybody had it, but like, I think it was like a 4 or 5 year loan. It was like a car loan and it was insane. Like it was the craziest thing I've probably done. And it worked out, but it wasn't like, I think I could have done it without it for sure. But I was trying.
But do you think it would have pushed you to be where you are now?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. Like, I would not advise it. I mean,
right.
It's sketchy because but the only thing that I think is important, the lesson that I learned is that it made me do more because I had to pay it.
Mm.
And so I think a lot of people fall, like people who are creators, writers, musicians, any of that stuff. I think you fall away from like pushing yourself and creating because nothing is really pushing you to create. Like if you're paying your rent and everything's okay and like you're just cruising, you're comfortable, you're never going to push limits. So like take out a loan on a $50,000 camera.
You heard it here first, kids.
I don't know. I think that's the only thing that I learned from it is like pushes your limits to then make sure you can pay for all the things that you do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good way to do stuff. Like, I don't think that's not financial advice for anybody that's listening. Like, don't go do that.
No, but
I was putting a bunch of people in debt.
I think you can take elements of that, because like, if it was kind of like, if you didn't make money off of having that Red and having that camera, like that would have been a big failure. You're like, I need to push myself so much to succeed.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of that same thing. It's how I think a lot of filmmakers are learning now and people in the creative space is just like trial and error. Like that's really how I learned. It's kind of like the same thing with like editing and like, okay, this doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to try this. Okay, this doesn't work. I'm going to try this. But like in your case, it was like the extreme. Like if this doesn't work, I'm like so screwed.
I go extreme for a lot of stuff though. I mean, my wife will tell you that. It's just like, I think I'm like leap before you look, which is like completely not what you're supposed to do. But I think that has helped get to where I am because I'm just like, I'm going to figure it out. Like same with taking on jobs. I would take on jobs when I had like zero time. I'm like, I'll just edit every night until I finish this and then I'll film all day. I think you have to do some of that. I mean, we kind of do it now with some of the work we take on. Like we do take on a lot more than seems possible because we're like, we want to work with some of these bigger clients that we work with. We want to do cool stuff and we want to show that like we have the capabilities and like you never know when that's going to go away.
Right. And I think sometimes like taking that big giant risk, like that might seem like you're like 6 feet underground that you can't get out of. It's then like, if that becomes like you're supposed to like normal, then just imagine how it is when it like for other people, what seems crazy to you is like, oh, it's no big deal.
Right. I think we've gotten so comfortable as a society with work, living for some of us. I know it's not the same across the board, but I think there's like a creator mentality that people become, especially in the creator space, comfortable with where they are. And then what happens is somebody new comes along and just like will take on any work and do anything. And that person has to then catch up.
Mm-hmm. Or they just get, I mean, sometimes they can't catch up. Like they're just left behind. So it's like, if you're not moving to, if you're not adamant enough about trying to better yourself, then the other guy can just like swoop right under. It's kind of like the traditional underdog story. If you're just very comfortable with where you are, some underdog is going to come up who's very passionate about what they're trying to do, and it's just going to swoop you right out. So,
I mean, there's room for that in any profession. I think in creating and filmmaking, it definitely is. I mean, I see some crazy good stuff that people are creating, and that's like, I shot this by myself, like in my apartment or whatever. And I'm like, damn, this is good. Or like the color grading some people are doing. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, especially over COVID, like you saw the people like creating like studios in their apartments and their homes and whatnot. And just because like they're like passionate, I want to shoot something for this brand. And like that like triggered a whole new kind of set of people, these like individuals out there that are just, I don't know.
Well, and it's becoming so much affordable for like not even a camera, but like a gimbal, just gear in general, where you can now start making these like pretty crazy films or YouTube videos, just random things. And like you have these little kids who are like 14, 15 years old, just killing it. because they have access to like all this shit.
I mean, that's what Mr. Beast did. He started at, I think, like 12. And I remember watching one of his videos. He made a video, I think he was like 12, and he made this video where he was like, supposed to be studying for like a history test right now, but I'm creating this video. And it was just him talking, like crappy lighting. And he was like, I'm really pushing my YouTube channel. In 5 years, if I don't have, I forget what it was like 400,000 subscribers, I'm going to quit this, but I think you'll have it. I think, like, he was talking to himself, saved that video and said launch in 5 years. And it launched in 5 years. And I think he had like 3 million.
How sick is that?
Yeah.
So he like called a shot. And I think more now you could do that with like kids creating, like you just got to, it's consistency. Like
100%.
He didn't have anything. I mean, he's a smart guy and like he is talented, but he didn't have anything like mind blowing that was like, oh man, he's the next like big thing. He was just like, I'm going to just do this thing because I think I'm going to invest in this thing. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my free time in it. And no one's really paying attention to this platform. I think you could still do that for YouTube. I think podcasts, like even though there's like thousands of them, like this is, I think, where media is going, where people are now having the voice to talk about whatever they want. They can film whatever they want. And like, you're going to get less networks and less of their attention.
Totally. More people are starting to do podcasts. I mean, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett just launched their podcast. Like you have more celebrities because it's fairly easy to hire someone to set up a camera and a mic and you guys just talk and now you have a giant platform. Right. You know what I mean? Like I think we're going to see millions and millions more podcasts popping up soon.
And it's fun. I mean, like today, the reason that this is like not so beautifully set up is like we had a plan for another setup and then we were like, oh, let's just do this like in person go-to setup. And it's really just like as long as you have something to talk about, which I feel like we always have something like in production or like lighting or anything else, like you can just go for it. And people listen and some people won't, but whatever. Like if you don't create it, you're never going to find out like if people like it or not.
Right. I mean, with not even just that, but also like if you're not creating in general, like if that's something that you're passionate about, like I feel like you're just like if you post once a month, a couple times a year, like you're kind of, those skills are always going to stay stagnant. But if all of a sudden you're doing it daily, weekly, whatever, you keep kind of doing that, you're going to develop a lot faster. And I mean, the learning process just kind of continues to go up and up exponentially.
Yeah. There's this girl, I forget what her channel name is, but I think she started during COVID and she just like films her day. And it's like super chill, very cinematic though. Like she lights it, but she'll be like writing and then she'll be like reading a book and like she does like little voiceovers on it. And her channel blew up. I think she has like 600,000 followers. And it's just really
crazy
creating and talking about her process of like writing and creating videos and like simple, but she found her niche.
Right. It is very hard though when you're first making that stuff.
Totally.
Because I mean, I think that it's very easy to be caught up in like, oh, that didn't do so well. Maybe just people don't like my stuff. But in reality, like it's just hard. Like the whole internet, because obviously the companies and the platforms you're posting to are trying to profit off of what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
So they're going to put out what's like most popular and those things. And so to build that up, you do really have to have a lot of self-drive in order to continue to do that.
Yeah. You also have to not only self-drive, but just like not worry about what people think.
Right.
Because there's going to be people that think it's dumb or like want to talk about the technicalities of what you're doing. And like, it shouldn't matter. Like if you love what you're doing, just keep doing it and it will show through what you're creating.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean,
there's gonna be people like that with everything.
You've done it with your other podcast too. Like you've started to post more and like seen that grow.
And that's exactly it. I sat there just like you guys were talking, like Mr. B said, I'm going to do this and I'm going to, 5 years from now, blah, blah, blah. I said to myself, I'm like, all right, because I was kind of all over the place with like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of them. And I'm like, let me just focus on one platform.
Totally.
And the podcast. And I saw the growth. I would post every single day, maybe twice a day. And I've seen the growth. So it's like being consistent is the number one thing that you can do.
Yeah, and people always talk about like, I'm not seeing what I need to in the numbers, and it's like, well, what are you posting? Well, I'm posting photos of my cameras, and it's like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, oh, I want to create videos. It's like, well, you should be creating videos, not just posting stills of things. Like, you should create that thing that maybe is harder, but like that's the thing you want to do. Because like if you're, I don't know, a writer and you're like filming yourself talking instead of writing, like it's not going to translate the same.
Yeah, it's very much. I think that, like we kind of said, it kind of goes for anything like an athlete. You know, some athletes are born to like play that specific position. Like you don't have a 5'2" guy going and be like, I want to be a linebacker.
Right.
Like, so he's like, you know, you kind of got to pick your lane and then like just really work hard and pursue it, that one thing, and it's going to work out, and you're going to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
And you know, you get too many voices in your head sometimes, and that can be a little bit hard, especially.
But everyone also wants to blow up overnight.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like I've been doing my other podcast for years, so it's like I really just focused in on it the last like 2 years, but still it takes a while. Like everyone wants to think they're going to make millions and blow up like after, you know, a couple months on posting, and then they stop posting because they don't see the growth.
Well, and also like not every video is going to be a banger that you make.
Right.
Like not, it's the same thing with athlete. Like not every single game that you play is going to be like your best.
Yeah.
And it's also like if you don't mess up here and there, like you're just gonna like, I don't know, succeeding all the time is just like it's cool, it's great, like awesome, like every single thing you put out is succeeding, but like I feel like then that success just kind of becomes like, oh, okay, I did it again. Cool.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't have those down moments, those high moments are like not as cool.
Yeah, and you should be creating something you enjoy. Because like, if you don't like cooking, you shouldn't be doing a cooking show.
Yeah.
Because like cooking shows are killing it. Like I've always wanted to, and I don't know what this is, but I've always wanted to do something that is not what I do for work. Like whether it's like filming, I don't know, like wood carving or something, like me doing something like that I love. I don't love wood carving, but something like that.
I was like, wait, what?
No, something like that where like I love this thing and I should just create things around it. And I don't do that currently, maybe because like we're busy doing too many things, but like I think that's cool to like, oh, you really love to write. Like you should write every day then. Like even if you're not putting it anywhere, like you should do that thing because you get really good at it. Maybe you'll decide what you want to do with it later down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that like you also have to recognize that, like for example, in high school, I was like, oh man, I really want to be a DJ. I think that would be sweet.
I wanted to be a DJ so bad.
But I have zero musical talent. I have zero. So like, I mean, yeah. So, but like if I maybe DJ'd in my dorm room or whatever every single day, maybe I could have gotten to that point of, you know, being decent enough.
Why did you ever want to be a DJ?
No,
really?
Never had that passion.
Dude, I don't know what it was because like I loved that too. I don't.
Yeah. So, but like, I think just going back to like, just because everybody's like doing it doesn't necessarily mean you need to do it, because you also might not have, like, some of those people just may be very gifted at what they're doing.
Right. They can read music or whatever.
Right. Like if I handed my girlfriend a red camera and be like, hey, go film something, like, she doesn't have that talent to be able to like go and grab it and like figure it out right away.
If she listens,
not trying to shit on her.
She might go shoot something and it might be amazing, and then she might take your job.
But yeah, like you just like, some people aren't like made or like, you know, created to like do certain things. But that's what's also great about it, is because like if everybody was great at everything, nothing would be that great.
Yeah, you should lean into your strengths, and everybody has them. You just have to figure out what that is. And it's not always easy to figure that out, but once you figure out what that is, you should follow that path. Like just because your friend's doing something else, or like people like to chase money. And I think that's insane.
Yeah.
Like people are like, oh, well, there's a ton of money in banking. I don't really love it, but I'm going to chase it. It's like, like you're just going to be unhappy.
That would be crazy.
People do it though.
Be unhappy your whole life just chasing money. It's like,
people do it, man. Like people.
Oh yeah.
I've heard stories. I've heard people say like, I just got like 20 more years of this and I'll be good. And I'm like, damn, like listen to that. I have 20 more years of this and I'll just stick it out. Like,
yeah,
that's crazy.
Well, and I think you also see, like, kind of going back to the talent thing is like some people get it like that.
Right.
And other people, it will take them forever to get there. So, like, I don't know, everybody talks about, like, the comparison is like the thief of all joy. So if you're always comparing yourself to where you are to where somebody else is, like, you have no idea what their situation could have been for them to get at that point.
You don't know how much they're practicing.
Exactly. And, or, they have daddy's money. Like,
yeah.
But that's the thing. Look at all the greats, like Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Kobe Bryant, Mike Tyson, like everybody. I mean, they had some serious, like, parenting problems. Like their parents made them work every day. I mean, look at Beyonce. But they are number one. They were at the top of their game, and that's because they constantly worked every day. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they were constantly working. But people see that they're number one. They must have got it easy. No, look at Tiger Woods. Same thing. It's like, from a child, they were working every single day on their craft.
Yeah.
And that's why they're number one.
Right. If you literally, you could pick anything tomorrow, and if you were like, I'm going to do this thing every day for 10 years, you'd probably be pretty damn good at the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not
100%.
Maybe not a pro, but you'd be really good at whatever that is. Like, if it's sewing or woodworking or basketball, like, you'd be incredible.
I mean, I might quit everything and start golfing full time.
I thought you were going to go pro.
I might. Yeah.
I mean, you called it out
to sim right now. Like,
you called it out to me. You're like, I'll be in the PGA soon. I don't see you golfing every day, bro.
But
yeah, this restaurant's killing me.
I will say, going off of that is like, if you're doing the same thing every single day, but you're not, like, thinking about what you're doing, like, if you're just out there hitting golf balls and you're just like, oh, that one right to that, oh, that one left to that, oh, that, like, but you don't recognize why the thing is doing what you're doing,
craft.
You're not developing and getting, like, better.
You're
so,
just
like,
doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, when you say, like, a lot of people, I think, like the practice makes perfect. Everybody says that, but it's more like perfect practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Because, if you just practice, like, it's just like, I'm just, hitting your head against the wall all the time.
You shoot hoops every day, but, like, you don't fix the way that you shoot or whatever, and you're always off. Like, you're always you're never going to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing to look at, that, like, there's a lot of opportunity out there, but there's a lot of missed opportunity because people tend to follow the wrong path. Not necessarily, like, really dark, bad path, but, like, I'm just going to do this thing because this is what I went to school for. That's, like, a big one where people are like, I can't do anything else because I went and I had this major and I need to keep doing this thing, but I really love this thing that maybe doesn't pay as well, but it's really enjoyable.
Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate that it's almost like that's what's been taught, is like the decisions you make in the first 20 years of your life is what you're destined for the rest.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, no, like, the human brain is, like, capable of so many things.
They do that in, like, elementary school. They're like, okay, what does everybody want to be?
Yeah.
And they're like, like a firefighter. Like, they name the things that they know, and it's like, then they just think they want to be that thing. And then most of people change their mind. Yeah, it's okay. But some people get locked in, like, my family does this one thing and I'm going to continue doing that one thing.
I went in college, thinking I wanted to be an engineer.
Well, I mean, you build cameras.
Yeah, but
not like from scratch, but
like, that's what I thought I wanted to do, because I was like, I don't know, I was, like, relatively good at math. I'd, like, built a lot of Legos as a kid.
Yeah.
But, like, I suck at math. Like, I'm so bad at math.
But it seemed like a good thing.
No, it seemed like a good, but, like, I was, like, looking at engineering specific schools, all of these things. And then eventually I just kind of, like, picked a path that I thought I would enjoy. And then that's what kind of did it for me more so. I didn't really go off of, like, everything that, like, one piece that was following the other.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
I looked at business schools.
Yeah.
Like, almost purely because I was like, business seems like that's what you do after school, is business. I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to look at schools. And I was going to play soccer at some schools, and they're like, yeah, you can play here, soccer team. You could definitely play. Then I didn't have the grades to get in, so they're like, oh, sorry, like, can't really. So I'm like, all right, well, what's next? So I applied to a couple other schools, and I ended up just following my girlfriend to a school. That's legitimately what I did. And like ended up in a new media major. And I was like, so I wasn't even, I loved photography, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do this in school.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just like fell into it and just like kept at it. And it wasn't because like I went to school for it or somebody told me to. I just like kind of figured it out along the way.
Well, it is kind of funny thinking about situations like that because, like, you never know like what could be pulling you into that direction.
Yeah.
Like I went to school for the school that I went to mainly to play baseball because it was one of the few schools that gave me the opportunity to, and I stuck around at the school not because we were some fantastic winning team. It was because like the school was offering me so much more that like was helping me pursue and like get better at what I wanted to do and wanted to become.
Yep.
So it's like kind of funny how like things like that work out.
Yeah. I think there's probably plenty of opportunities where like even like in skateboarding and other things, like other activities where you meet somebody. I think that whole networking, like the more you're around other people doing creative things, you're leaning more into this space of like you don't have to do like the same thing that everybody else is doing.
Networking's huge. And I never went to college, but I think that's like a big reason why people go to college.
Yeah.
Or one of the benefits that you get out of college is networking. Because to me, I'm like, especially with like a thing like video, production and stuff like that, you can jump out of that. You can jump into that right out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
You can try to find a production company, or you can start doing something, and jumping into the real world is like, you're not going to get better experience than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the I've heard the networking in college when people went for video, it was like a really good thing.
I think that's the one thing that I've heard that a lot of people walk away from film school specifically saying like, I walked away with a lot of connections in the film industry. Not necessarily that they shot amazing things, but they walked away knowing a lot of people. So they have the opportunity to like make good stuff that way, or like be connected and, work on sets a lot.
Yeah. I mean, your network is gold. Like that is the number one thing in any industry, I think, is just meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like talking to people, learning what they do, like even if it has nothing to do with what you do, because maybe they're like, oh yeah, my cousin works in Hollywood or whatever. It's like you start these conversations, and it's not like, don't go to networking events. Like that's not what I'm saying, because that's the last place. Like everybody at a networking event is like, has an agenda.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so like wrong place. Like you're going to meet somebody like on the train or on a bus or like in the airport because like they notice like you're wearing Jordans and they love collecting Jordans. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, my friend used to design for Nike or something. Like you just start these stories, and the networking events, people think that's where they're going to meet. Like, oh, I'm going to make so many connections.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are very, I don't think comfortable is, well, maybe it is. They're a lot more confident with people that they know. Like kind of like the age old thing that always happens in the wedding industry is like, oh, sorry, your prices are too high. We're going to go with my, cousin that shoots video.
Yeah.
I don't know, like who knows?
I love that one.
Who knows how good his video is, but they just know he shoots video, and that's all that matters.
They didn't even ask the cousin yet either. They're like, we're just going to go with my cousin. He has a camera.
Yeah.
And you're like,
so it's like you could be Steven Spielberg's DP, but they're going to, like, they don't know you. So I think they're going to probably go with cousin.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's definitely who you know. And I think that's a big part of any industry. And I mean, that's a lot of where the work has come for Jukebooth, is like just knowing people and staying connected to people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a lot of that, and just being nice to people, because you never know.
Right.
Like some people decide to be, whether they work with you on set or they're a client, and they decide not to be nice. Like eventually that just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I mean, the Zipcar job, for example, like that was my contact that I had there wasn't related to anything that was like media
for
the company, but it like helped us get like an introduction into the person who had media, because it's like, oh, I know somebody who knows somebody.
It was great. Yeah, and they were like just getting ready to do some video.
Mm-hmm.
and they like didn't have anybody yet. So like walked in at the perfect moment, and we got a sweet gig with the car.
Yeah,
that was cool. Well, I think let's wrap this up. Maybe we could do this all day. I'm sure we're like deep into the hours here, but what do you guys think?
No, 56 minutes. We're good.
Okay.
Not bad.
Okay. No,
I feel like we touched a lot of good points.
This was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to do this more. So
we should. We just talked about consistency.
We've always talked about like our conversations on shoots when we have downtime. We should just be recording a podcast because it happens just like this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think people listening, this could happen more often, whether it's the three of us or more of us. And I think we're going to do more in-person stuff. I think it's really just about consistency in doing it, like you guys said. So I think expect more of this. Maybe the setup will be a little nicer, but if you're just listening.
But that's also what I love is a lot of people don't do stuff because it's not as beautiful. Oh, I didn't get the light set up right. Or, look at the background. It's a friggin', blank wall, but it's like, we needed to set it up and you did it and it is what it is, and it's like, we still did it.
Yeah. Right. It's about doing it. And I think that's what happens is people, like you said, don't. I mean, it happens with us sometimes. We're like, I don't feel like setting it up, but we should just do more of this stuff.
Yeah. Or it's like, my camera rig, my lighting rig won't be as like perfectly like
chasing perfection.
Exactly what I want. Yeah.
People do that a lot with stuff. Like I used to do that more with my like personal videos. I was like, it's not there yet. I got to wait till it's there. When I should have just dropped it and like people would like it, people would not like it, but then I could move on.
Yeah.
Like if you don't drop that video or that song or whatever it is, you're never going to see what people think. And like criticism's worth it. Like it's worth.
Oh my gosh.
And like public criticism is awesome because like people are like, oh, this is really cool. I would love to see you do this more. And you're like, oh.
I would rather somebody tell me like my work is absolute dog shit than like be sweet talked.
It like fires you up.
Absolutely.
Than like, I feel like that is like so much more valuable to me. Like, sure, it's gonna hurt. Like, especially if somebody said it like that. Like, your work is dog shit. Like, that
wouldn't start telling Daniel his work is dog shit. Because you keep saying, "Oh man,
I do." I keep pumping him up.
I've been watching 10 times.
Hey, the video that he just edited was,
I know,
it's amazing.
He does really good stuff.
Hopefully, you guys will see it soon.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd rather be told that than kind of putting too much sugar on it. Because it does benefit me. I'm gonna make better work because of that.
Yeah,
exactly.
It allows you to learn. Yeah. Cool. That's the pod.